Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And today we need to talk about PlayStation and the new direction the company has taken since Jim Ryan took over as the PlayStation boss. A massive, huge story broke today, written by Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg, and fans are absolutely furious. This is not some exaggeration either. Much of the game community is highly upset about what came out today. I mean, there was a lot to this article. We got a behind-the-scenes look into their secret PlayStation studio and what they've been working on, and ultimately how it's going now. There's a lot to this story though, as I said, so we will talk extensively about that today because I have a lot to say about this. It's just not good. Now, as always, we still have other things to talk about. PlayStation might be working on an Xbox Game Pass competitor according to a new leak. That could be interesting, but first, let's go over the quick news, starting off with Mistwalker's new game, Fantasian. Now, we've talked about this game several times on this channel. I don't usually cover Apple Arcade games, but this game was developed by the legendary studio Mistwalker. Of course, Mistwalker's led by the father of Final Fantasy himself, Hironobu Sakaguchi, and his resume is ridiculously good. He's worked on classic Final Fantasy games, Lost Odyssey, Blue Dragon, Vagrant Story, Kingdom Hearts, Chrono Trigger, Parasite Eve, and so many more. He has had such a huge impact on the game industry, so yeah, I've been highly interested in Fantasian for quite a while. I'm a big fan of Mistwalker, and Fantasian kind of reminds me of Lost Odyssey, which in my opinion is an all-time great JRPG. Well, unsurprisingly, it looks like Fantasian is yet another good game coming from Mistwalker and Hironobu Sakaguchi. It currently has an 83 overall score on Metacritic, and fans seem to really like it. Now, I haven't gotten to play it myself yet, as I don't own an Apple device, and I am very sad about this situation. I'm almost tempted to buy an Apple TV, to be completely honest with you, but as of this moment, only half the game is out. The other half comes out in the second half of 2021, so I might hold off until then. In the meantime, I'm just really hoping for a console and PC port. I don't usually port beg, but I'm going to absolutely beg for this one. This particular game needs to come to consoles and PC. If you have played this game though, let me know in the comments below on what you think about Fantasian. Now, last week we talked about another Japanese game, Neo the World Ends With You. They were teasing some new information for this game ahead of the anime's launch, and I told you all if anything interesting happened, I would give you an update. Well, they did just that today. It was actually a lot more information than what I was even expecting. We got a new trailer which looks pretty good. Definitely go check that out. They showed some new gameplay which is quite a bit more ambitious than the first game with 3D models and environments. I think it looks pretty good and a nice transition from the original. It looks different but familiar at the same time. They also revealed new characters and their voice actors, and it even teased that Neku, the protagonist of the first game, may be returning for the sequel. I'm not quite sure about that yet, as his face is hidden in the trailer, and apparently the Japanese trailer didn't use the same name, so we'll see about that. The big news though is the release date. Yeah, we finally got a release date, and I know fans of the original have been waiting for a very long time. Well, the wait is almost over. Neo the World Ends With You will release on July 27th for the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch. If you like Japanese games, I do highly encourage you to check this one out. Really, I think fans of Japanese games in general are having a pretty good year. I mean, we've already gotten Bravely Default 2 and Monster Hunter Rise, and then in the coming months you have Disgaea 6, Nier, Monster Hunter Stories 2, and Neo the World Ends With You. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of good games to me. Let's talk about PlayStation though, and there is a lot to go over here. We will start out with some good news first though. Sales numbers just came out for the UK, and the PS5 was the best-selling console in that region for the second month in a row. Apparently, it was actually the second biggest month for the PS5 in that region since launch. That's really good news for the PS5 and shows they are getting plenty of restocks in that region. Interestingly enough, it looks like the Xbox Series had a big month in the UK as well, where they took the second place spot. Now, why that's interesting is because that means that the Nintendo Switch, which is used to dominating, took third place for the first time in years. Now, that doesn't mean it sold poorly or anything like that. In fact, it seems like all three consoles had a good month in the UK. As an example, 11 of the top 20 best-selling games was Nintendo Switch games. But this does kind of show you the demand for these next-generation consoles right now. And that right there is the situation. The Xbox Series and the PS5 have not met their initial demand yet. It seems like we're still millions of consoles away from them reaching that initial demand, and that is insane. The one who sells the most is basically who can produce the most. It's going to be that way for quite a while, or at least until that initial demand is met, but big congrats to all three on their success over in the UK. Okay, so now we need to talk about what's happening with PlayStation. So Jason Schreier wrote a big article about PlayStation's secret San Diego studio. A lot of fans privy to the situation knew they existed and had been working on something, but for whatever reason, Sony just never confirmed the studio's existence. Well, after this article, it now makes sense on why Sony never talked about this studio publicly. Now, we on the channel have speculated on what this studio has been up to in the past. It really seemed like this studio was working on either a new Uncharted game or an Uncharted remake based off their job listings. I, for one, would have taken either one of those games. Uncharted is a top 3 favorite franchise of mine. If you don't know this, my 3 favorite franchises are Pokemon, Gears of War, and Uncharted in no specific order, so I would have been thrilled to get an Uncharted remake. And they were apparently thinking about doing an Uncharted remake at the beginning, but apparently they decided against that because it would have been too expensive and require too much added design. So instead they decided to do a remake of The Last of Us. Yeah, I don't understand this one at all. The Last of Us released in 2013 and then got a remaster for the PS4. I guess we're remaking a remaster for a console that still sells today. I mean, this thing is available through backwards compatibility on the PS5. Where's the logic in that decision? I could probably name 10 different PlayStation games that deserves a remake more than The Last of Us. Regardless, it didn't seem like Sony was sold on San Diego making this project, so ultimately, after not giving them that much support, they had them help out on The Last of Us Part 2, and when that was finished, Naughty Dog basically took over The Last of Us remake, with the original team not having much say in the direction of their own project. That's a pretty messed up situation, but it starts to make more and more sense as you read through this article. So basically what's happening here is that Sony is shifting focus to big blockbuster games at the expense of creativity of quote-unquote niche games. And this isn't just with small games like you might think, but it's also with AAA. In other words, games that have proven to be critical darlings. Another studio that was brought up during this article was Sony Bend. Sony Bend is the developer for Uncharted Golden Abyss and Days Gone. Now, Days Gone is an interesting PS4 exclusive. Critically, it wasn't the most beloved game, but fans seem to have really liked it, which goes to show you Metacritic isn't always right, and it sold extraordinarily well. And for those reasons, you would think that Days Gone would have gotten a sequel. In fact, Sony Bend wanted to do a sequel, but PlayStation rejected their pitch. Yeah, that's right, Days Gone 2 will not happen, and instead of letting them work on their own game right away, Sony Bend was instead shifted to help Naughty Dog on their projects. Yeah, you're starting to see a theme here. It seems like Sony is putting a lot of resources into Naughty Dog in the expense of creativity from otherwise lesser-known teams. Now, there is a positive here, though. Sony Bend was reportedly helping out with Naughty Dog's multiplayer game and then also a new Uncharted game. Yes, now that is big news. A new Uncharted is in development, and that is fantastic. As I said before, I love the Uncharted franchise. Sony Bend, however, was not happy about this situation, as I'm sure they felt like they deserved to work on their own games instead of being a support studio. Well, this resulted in key members leaving the studio, and that's something that happened with Sony Japan over the last 6 months. PlayStation told Sony Japan that they no longer want to focus on games that are only successful in Japan. Ultimately, Sony Japan was restructured, and Sony Japan no longer exists. They were absorbed into Team Asobi, where they will work on the Astro franchise, which I do love. I think Astro is amazing, and I've talked about that several times on this channel, but it's unfortunate to see a talented and creative studio just disappear. Luckily, Sony Bend did finally get their wish, and just last month they were approved to work on their own game. With it just now being approved though, we're likely not going to see this game for another 4 to 5 years depending on the size of this game. So that's basically it right there. To sum things up, PlayStation is taking a new direction where they primarily focus on blockbusters alone with known hits, and this reportedly left several PlayStation studios not named Naughty Dog at unease. Creative freedom is in serious question here, and I don't blame these studios for feeling the way they do. It's strange to hear this. PlayStation in the past was well known for taking chances and being creative, but that was under different leadership. That's how they got where they are today, and it really showed in my opinion during the PS3 and PS4 generation. Of course, you had those big blockbuster hits, but they always took chances on things as well. Not every game needs to be a massive hit because even smaller games have their fans. Me as an example, I like big AAA games, but it's not all I like. One of my favorite PS3 games to this day is Mod Nation Racers. That game was absolutely amazing, and I remember Sony Japan putting out several high-quality games, whether that be Gravity Rush, Puppeteer, or even The Last Guardian. You know, they've worked on a lot of high-quality games, but because they're not huge quote-unquote blockbusters apparently, Sony Japan is no longer a studio. It's just a sad situation, and maybe some of you think I'm being too harsh, or I'm only talking about the negative. If you listen to me every day though, you should probably know that I'm generally very positive about all three platforms, but they have been making a lot of weird decisions lately, and you can blame Jim Ryan for that, and partially Herman Hulst, which is the head of PlayStation Worldwide Studios. As I said before, PlayStation has different leadership now. Shawn Layden, which helped make the PS4 a huge success, was for the players. Jim Ryan, though, I'm not so sure about, and it's rather clear that Shawn Layden wasn't happy about the direction that Jim Ryan wanted to take. I imagine with Shawn Layden, things would have probably been a lot different right now. Fans, though, are voicing their opinion on Twitter and want Shawn Layden to return, and he's liking all of those tweets today. Jim Ryan, on the other hand, he lied about the PS5 and PS4 cross-generation games. He doesn't believe in legacy games, he's shutting down the PS3 and Vita store, and now this. A lot of that is recent news, and it's just a string of negativity. I would love to talk about more positive PlayStation stuff, but this is what's happening right now, and I have to talk about it. However, with all of that said, I do want to say, PlayStation still makes amazing games. That hasn't changed. There is a lot of negative news coming out right now, and I can't sugarcoat that. But I think it's important to keep a level head, and I think once the PS5 starts to get its big exclusives, like Uncharted, God of War Ragnarok, the next Spider-Man, and so on and so forth, a lot of this concern will dissipate. You know, I'm extremely excited about those games myself. Yeah, it's saddening to hear news like we're getting today, but when all's said and done, I fully expect some great PS5 games to launch throughout the generation. And I do think that's important. Yes, we should praise PlayStation when they do good things, like make great AAA games, but we should also voice our criticism when things like this happens. It goes both ways. You don't just have to universally praise a company, but you can also criticize them when they're doing things wrong. And here, I think they are making some questionable decisions. And that is something that we need to keep in mind. I'm excited for upcoming PlayStation games, and I will praise them when they do things right. I will praise them when they make these great games. But at the same time, there is points where you need to criticize them for making the questionable decisions that they're making here recently. Now, with that said, we do have one last thing to talk about. According to a former PlayStation employee, David Jaffe, who's most well known for working on the original God of War and Twisted Metal, claims that PlayStation is working on a counterpunch to Xbox Game Pass. He doesn't seem to know exactly what this means, but it is something he's heard about from different people who work within PlayStation. Really though, this isn't the first time we've heard something like this. Jim Ryan himself alluded to this last year, saying that there actually is news to come, just not today. So they are working on something, though the question is, what are they working on? For me, the first thing I'm going to ask is about first-party Day 1 exclusives. That right there was the selling point for me when it came to Xbox Game Pass. That is such a huge incentive to subscribe to a service like this, and I'm not sure if Sony would do something like that. In the past, PlayStation sounded as if they were against doing something like that, but I mean, you never know. They could do some other things to make an attractive service. They could combine PlayStation Now with PlayStation Plus. I think PlayStation Plus is an excellent service. They've been doing a great job with that since the release of the PS5, and if Sony managed to bring over the PS3 and Vita library to PlayStation Now, that would make that service a little bit more interesting. It's still missing those Day 1 exclusives, however, but as pointed out on Twitter, they could add their games in like 6 months after release. And okay, that sounds pretty good. I'd be happy about that. And Sony could get the best of both worlds. I'm sure a lot of people would subscribe to a service like that, and you would still have millions of people buy their games before they launch into a subscription. We'll see what happens with all of this though, but it does sound like Sony is working on something to counteract Xbox Game Pass. Before I go though, let's take a look at the poll of the day, and with Nintendo participating in E3 this year, I asked you all, will the Switch Pro be revealed at E3? and 51% of you said yes. Well, I hope you all are right. Not only am I excited about what's leaked so far, but I'm also ready to report on the real thing and move beyond just the rumors. Regardless, let's bring on E3. I'm not sure if the Switch Pro will be announced there, but that's what I love about E3. You can go in expecting anything because there will be huge announcements there. Now we just need to see what these announcements are. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.